Sofia bilang?
Elzsa, you can say hi while I do my work here.
Start. Selamat malam Indonesia, selamat pagi Amerika. Greetings from Washington DC. My name is Elzsa Palar Purdy from RUMAH Indonesia, a non-profit organization that focuses on introducing Indonesia to America through language, art, and culture. I'm here with RUMAH Indonesia co-founders, Tricia Sumarijanto and Debbie Sumual Patlis. Debbie will be handling and navigating the wonderful world of Zoom. Not sure if you realize this, but we are in for such a great treat tonight. We have Dean Hellman of Georgetown University, and also Ibu Sofia Blake, the founder of StudioSB. Both Ibu Sofia and Dean Hellman will share their expertise and knowledge about higher education in the United States. Now, some housekeeping issues. Please know, this event will be recorded and we will have Q&A at the end of the session. You can write your question on the chat box and we will try to address it as much as we could. Now I would like to ask Tricia to say briefly something about RUMAH Indonesia. Tricia, please.
Thank you, Elzsa, and thank you everyone for joining this event. RUMAH Indonesia was established in 2012 by 5 women in Washington, D.C. Each of us has different backgrounds: civil engineering, psychology, communication, and criminology. But we share the same feelings and hopes that we love Indonesia, and we want to share this with our children who were born and raised in the US. We want them to be able to embrace their Indonesian roots while being the global citizen. We started with Bahasa Indonesia class in 2012. We know language is one of many cultural identities that one can have. We began with 3 students and now we have 40 students. It is not always easy, but we are happy to see how excited our students are to attend classes, now online classes. And we also organize many cultural events and workshops like wayang, batik, dance, cooking, angklung, in collaboration with many institutions such as the Embassy of Indonesia, Smithsonian Institute, local schools, and other organizations. We want to bring the beauty of Indonesia to our own communities and of course to our American families and friends. And tonight we have a very different type of event that we usually have. You may think the topic has nothing to do with culture nor language. Well, we are very lucky again, like Elzsa said. We have 2 wonderful experts who will help everyone to think and explore how you can bring your Indonesian experience and perspective as a unique selling point during the admission process. Without further ado, let's start. Elzsa, back to you.
Thank you, Tricia. Our first student video, we will have a video of 3 amazing Indonesian students. Our first student's video is Dira Hanifa. Dira graduated magna cum laude from American University in 2018. She received a merit-based scholarship of $10,000 annually during her years in the AU. Dira also volunteered with RUMAH Indonesia. Debbie, please. Technical difficulties here. 1 second. Yeah. I can hear that there's no sound. Sorry.
My name is Dira. I went to American University from 2015 till 2018. I graduated with a bachelor's degree of arts in economics and psychology. I now work at USINDO, the United States Indonesia Society. During my time as a student, I was active interning for several different places in Washington, D.C. I was active in PERMIAS, Persatuan Mahasiswa Indonesia di Amerika Serikat. And also, I joined an Indian Bollywood club because I wanted to learn how to dance Bollywood. I also took full advantage of the research opportunities in American University from my professors. So for example, during my sophomore year, I helped my professor to conduct research on alcohol use disorder. I think my favorite part about going to school in the US was that I was able to take classes outside my major. I took full advantage of the Gen Ed, that's what it's called, general education courses, such as Italian paintings. I love Italian Renaissance paintings. I took graphic design classes. I also took astrophysics, which was my favorite. I learned about space and I learned about rockets. That was really cool. If you want to know more about my experience in AU, especially about my majors in psychology and economics, please don't hesitate to contact me. I would love to tell you what I experienced, and maybe I have a few things I can share with you about what to do and what not to do. Yeah, I really am grateful that I picked going to the US, and I think you will feel the same too.
Thank you. And next, we're going to see a video from Audrey Tirtaguna. Audrey went to high school in Jakarta, and now she's studying in University of Pennsylvania, or UPenn. She was the public relations head of PERMIAS and member of Pencasila, Penn's Indonesian Students Association, who organized Penn Warden Indonesian Conference last year. Bapak Robert Blake was one of the keynote speakers, and I believe Ibu Sofia was there too. Currently, Audrey is a member of Student Committee of Undergrad Education who give advice and guidance to the faculty during the pandemic. We asked her how COVID-19 is affecting her academic and social life, including the pros and cons. Let's hear Audrey's thoughts.
My name is Audrey, and I'm currently a junior studying at the University of Pennsylvania, pursuing a major in Politics, Philosophy, and Economics, or PPE, and minoring in neuroscience. Because of the pandemic, I am currently back home in Jakarta, and I would just like to share with you all what my experience has been this semester in terms of my academics and social life. So in terms of my academic life, there's definitely both pros and cons. I would like to start the pros first. First of all, not being able to go anywhere and just being stuck at home really helps me focus on my work more. Secondly, my university also implemented this new policy where we're allowed to take as many classes with a pass-fail grading system. So what this means is that they don't take grades like A, B, C's as the final grade. It's just either pass or fail. So it really lifts off the burden from students of taking difficult classes this semester because we don't have the same access to resources as we would in a normal semester. And my favorite is definitely the third one, which is basically being able to watch lectures and do homework in bed in my PJs. Okay, so moving on to the cons. First of all, there is Zoom fatigue, which is a real phenomenon. Lots of people think we have it easy just because we're doing everything from home. However, staring at the computer screen for up to 15 hours every single day can be mentally and physically taxing for your body. Second of all, there's also time zone differences, which is difficult for an international student like me because sometimes I miss deadlines because I fail to convert the task deadlines to my own time zone. I also miss lectures because I simply can't stay awake from 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. in the morning. So I think that social life is definitely one of the things I struggle with the most this semester. and it's partly the main reason why I want to go back to Philadelphia next semester. I also do miss being around people who share the same drive, passion, as well as having to face the same struggles as I do. And I generally just miss my friends. So yeah, hopefully all my experiences and insights have been helpful to you all. Thank you for listening.
Oh, sorry for the screen share that not supposed to be shared earlier. The struggle of live show. Our first speaker is Ibu Sofia Blake. Ibu Sofia wears many hats. Tonight, she's here to share her expertise in helping students shape and writing their college application essay. Not many highly accomplished people are also highly approachable. Ibu Sofia has that quality. When you see her, and you will know what I'm talking about. I'm going to read you a short testimonial from one of Ibu Sofia's students. Working with Sofia was very easy, yet highly effective. You kind of understand the great result don't have to come with painful experiences. She let me be the master of my essay. Ibu Sofia, please.
Thank you, Elzsa. Thank you so much. So I hope it's become very clear to everybody how much I care about young people, how much I admire this generation. Elzsa, Tricia, Debbie, RUMAH Indonesia, thank you for inviting me. Also, as a Georgetown graduate, I am just so lucky to be with Dean Hellman tonight. And I'm hoping that tonight you will all walk away with some inspiration, some ideas, some more knowledge, specifically about the personal essays in the college admissions process. We don't have a lot of time, and I believe in like really being useful and practical for you and not wasting your time tonight. So here is what I plan to do. I want to speak very briefly about where we are with the admission process, focus mostly really on tools for writing your personal essays, and encourage you at the end to keep thinking about what success means to you. What is the value of education for you? So I'd like to start right away with telling you that I was born and raised in Bulgaria, so I'm by choice in the States and by choice an American. And as a result, I feel certain privilege to be critical of the States. So right off the bat, I'll tell you, we in the States have not figured out everything, but a lot of people want to do the right thing. Also, if there is one message I'd like you to get tonight, it is that applying to US colleges, coming to study here and being successful in the end is not a rocket science. Yes, there are a lot of choices, more than 3,000 colleges and universities, and you know, it doesn't matter which word you use, they basically mean the same thing in the States. But don't let that scare you. Don't let that stop you in your tracks. If you want to do it, you can figure it out. It's not that complicated. And yes, regardless of where you go to school, when you go to school, what you study, and where you study, you can be successful. And happiness and purpose in life is a lot more than education. 2020 has changed a lot in our lives. It's changed the way colleges teach. A lot of these changes are still underway, and we're still everywhere around the world trying to understand what this means for us students. The most important thing I would like to share with you is that my belief that at the core, the admissions process remains the same. Colleges and universities still care about what's important to you, what you have studied, what you're interested in, what your grades are, what you're doing outside of school. The most welcome change in 2020, especially for Americans, has been the fact that standardized tests are optional. And regardless of how things begin to shape in education, the opportunities, I believe, for you, my fellow Indonesian friends, are greater next year, because every crisis, every challenge brings with it opportunities and gifts. So I encourage you to look at this time as an opportunity for you to figure out how things can work for you. So each of these pieces that I mentioned earlier are important, and depending on where you go to school, they'll have a different importance. The more competitive the school, as you know, the more each of these pieces matters. How much the essay weighs in the overall application, again, depends on the college and on the school. I think our job, your job and my job, is to pay attention to all of these. And one advice I have for you is don't try to create a perfect application. Last year, a friend of mine came with his son, the most brilliant student, extracurricular activities, amazing essays, top scores, and was turned down for most universities. And my assessment was that it just looked too perfect. Everything was just too nicely put together. And having said that, look at us with the webinar today. There are mistakes that happen. There are things that occur, and you cannot let these things stop you because nothing ever works perfectly well, thank goodness. So let's focus on the essay. The personal essay that is part of the common application, not a complicated application if you actually start to do it. It's a 650-word essay. And please remember, this is not a resume, a place where you state what you've done when you've done it. It's not the story of your life. It's not the story about somebody else. And I see this happen over and over again, where students are tempted to write about somebody they like or admire. It's not a perfect narrative. If we say things don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to tell the story, the whole story. So what is it? The bottom line is when a reader finishes reading your essay, and counselors spend about 3 to 5 minutes on each applicant at most, on the whole application, the reader has to walk away with the feeling that they know you and that they like you. And a vulnerability is a big part of what I'd like a student to get in touch with. And by vulnerability, again, we're talking about this thing of being human. The vulnerability helps you create connection with the reader. So you can write about anything as long as your story is interesting and authentic. It's you. It could be an experience, an incident, a challenge, something you know how to do well, whether that's extraordinary or an ordinary thing. It's something that you think about, a problem that you want to solve. The bottom line is you want 3 criteria in the essay. You would like the reader, again, at the end of it, to know what you care about, who you are, what are your qualities. You're basically showing the best of you in an undercover, and what your interests are. And I always say, of course, show, don't tell. Here is a quick example of what I mean, show, don't tell. Instead of saying, I had to work hard, but I never complained. So you declare a quality, you declare the value of hard work. You can bring it through a story. The alarm clock rang at 5 a.m. sharp every day. It wasn't easy to open my eyes, and I slipped out of bed to prepare breakfast for, and you can fill in the blank, my sister. And I had to go to school because it takes me an hour and a half, or I have to go to work. Despite the early hour, the morning dew and the early sun put a smile on my face. When I work with students, guys, the first thing I do is walk students through that exercise. And you know what? I'm going to include it I'm going to, I'll give you my Instagram handle, and I will quickly put a link to that exercise. If you're ever going to write your personal essay, start with that exercise. It's a list of values, maybe 50. You go through the list of values, and by values, I mean things you relate to, things you care about, things that are important to you. Compassion, hard work, forgiveness, love, family, sense of humor, financial stability, balance, any of that. Out of this list, you make a list of the 5 top values for you. And out of the 5, I ask you to choose the top 3. At the end of your essay, each of these 3 values has come forward, has to be told through a story, a paragraph. So if you ever want to know more about the specific tools you can use to write, I just quickly want to check the time, an essay, I encourage you to go to the College Essay Guy website. The College Essay Guy and Ethan Sawyer is a company in California where I'm a college essay coach, and we care a lot about equity and access to education. So making education accessible, fair, and affordable for all students. So you will find a lot of free resources, blogs, example essays, and one of the tools, one of the online sort of programs we have worked on is this. It's a pathway through which you could discover the topic and the structure of your essay. Let me tell you a little bit about what that means. When you start writing your essay, it's good to make a decision whether you're going to write a narrative essay, which simply means a storytelling, just like a novel goes. There is a beginning, something happens, the hero does something about it, resolves the problem, and there is an end. Or you can decide to write a montage essay. Montage essay is more like a film. So say there is films could be action movies or love stories or science fiction ones. So you decide what the theme of the essay is, and you bring in different scenes, different examples that are actually supporting that story. Again, we can talk in more details about this. If you decide to write a narrative story, usually that means you have a challenge. So you can write a challenge-based essay. Here are some examples of what a challenged essay is. Before you read the examples, very quickly, if you're going to write an essay about a difficulty you faced, something you have overcome, remember that a third of the essay should be about what the challenge is. A third of the essay should be what you've done as a result in response to the challenge. And the last third is what have you learned? So if you just have a challenge, something difficult, but you haven't quite figured out what to do about it, do not write an essay on it. You will only write it if you have addressed it. So here are some examples. I will skip. And again, I'm going to look at the time, folks. And there is an example of the beginning of a challenge essay, which I am not going to read to you, except maybe the first few sentences, just to show you how simple it is. In 4th grade, I was the girl in the corner of the room, holding a book with large font and watercolor-esque pictures. I was far behind my classmates in reading and writing, and my classmates progressed while I struggled to write a sentence. So her challenge is she was falling behind with reading, and there was a learning problem. She was a learning style difficulty. So the rest of the essay, she talks about what she did about it. And as a result, she turned writing into her super strength. And she started writing poetry. So this is more or less what this is about. Folks, if you're gonna write a montage essay, which means that you're bringing different examples, different scenes, different moments of your life. You have to choose a theme, right? We talked about, is it a love essay? It's not a love essay, but it could be a love for something. Is it an action essay? What is the theme? So I suggest 7 possible threads or themes for your essay. Very quickly, I'll post on my Instagram hints about each one of these and tips, but you could bring examples of things you love to do or examples of things you know well about. Maybe I think Dira said astrophysicist, or something that's been occupying your mind and you're curious about. Write about this. An essence object exercise. On the website that I told you, you will find one of the brainstorming activities that I use is the essence object. What does this object tell me about you? What are the 2 or 1 interesting thing in your room or around you that tells me a story about you? A third possible theme for your essay could be, again, something that you're very good. Superpower is something that you're just, that's your strength. Career, it could be about a career you want to pursue in the future and why you believe you have the qualities and skills for it. Identity is looked at broadly. How do you see yourself? A student, a son, an inventor, a problem solver, a person who always asks questions. These are all part of your identities. How can you talk about it? How can you bring examples from your life story where these qualities have shown up? And again, look for example essays just to make this more sort of specific for you. Home is another thread for your story. And by home, it's not just the home where you live. It could be any place where you feel comfortable, any place that you relate to. It could be nature, it could be in a village, something that again brings these qualities that I want to know about. And extracurricular activities, this is a harder essay to write. What is interesting to all of you, my Indonesian friends, is that no matter what you write about, what I encourage you to do is to bring this Indonesian side of you, to bring the images that are part of your life and everyday experiences that for you may be ordinary, but for somebody sitting on the other side of the world, these are the interesting things that we want to know about. These are the stories we want to hear from you. What makes you Indonesian? Because whatever makes you Indonesian makes you human and part of what makes other people Bulgarians or Americans or so these are possible topics. Anything that can jog your I'm looking at the time, at your inspiration. So you can write about jobs, vacations, art supplies, tips. I will post this on the Instagram. But think of it as a sort of, the starting point of a explorative journey for you to write about yourself. And all of these topics are just the carrier, they're the shell, the train on which you put your ideas. I'm going to finish by saying how I believe that you will and you can find the best path forward for you. And no matter where you go to school and where you end up pursuing your education, this will be a lifelong journey for you. Make great choices. And always, and think of education not just as a way for you to build academic knowledge, but really as a view to build relationships, make lifelong friends, understand bigger concepts of freedom, of justice, of equity, of happiness, of joy, of purpose. Continue to learn how to communicate effectively with people, to work well with people, to build teams around problems. And again, the ability to make choices and decisions for yourself and for your community. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing about your successes. Thank you, Elzsa.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibu Sofia. Terima kasih. That was such a wonderful and presentation. It's an eye opener for everyone. I remember you said that we should see this during this pandemic. Every challenge should bring us to a greater opportunity. And for those who wants the Ibu Sofia's presentation, like Ibu Sofia mentioned, it will be posted in her Instagram. It's called Ibu Sofia Blake. So please go there and you can find so many resourceful information for you. Okay, so back to Elzsa for the next video.
Thank you. Wow, I just want to say a little bit something from Ibu Sofia's presentation. When we at RUMAH Indonesia talk about the idea of making this webinar happen, it's because I once attended Ibu Sofia writing workshop, and I said, I cannot just keep this to myself. I have to say it to the world. I have to share this to the world. So I email Ibu Sofia and thinking she will be very busy. She won't have time for this. And then guess what? 5 minutes later, she said, yes, let's do it. So she's been working with us since the idea come out. Our next video, our next student is Satrio Wicaksono. He received a full ride scholarship while studying undergraduate at Wesleyan University. He then went to Brown University for his PhD. Satrio, the environmental scientist, likes to dip his feet in many different things, like trail running, scuba diving, and Japanese dance. However, his most exciting news just came less than 2 weeks ago. He is now a proud new father, and Satrio based in Kuala Lumpur. Let's meet Satrio.
My name is Satrio Adi Wicaksono, and I am currently a sustainability professional at an intergovernmental organization. At first, I wasn't really planning to study in the States. I chanced upon information about Wesleyan University and the scholarship the Freeman Foundation offers when reading a science fiction novel written by a Wesleyan alumnus from Indonesia, and this was in October 2005. The thought of studying at the farthest place away possible from Indonesia enticed me the most, because I thought that would give me the most unique, challenging environment which would be good for my personal development. And so in fall 2006, off to Connecticut I went, and this is where Wesleyan is located. I was given a full ride scholarship to study there, and I enjoyed every bit of it. It was hard at first. A lot of adjustments were needed, especially for me to be able to switch from the Indonesian education mindset. As a Muslim, I found the Muslim Students Association as well as the Muslim chaplain on campus very welcoming, and I quickly became active in the association as well as other organizations related to international students. I'm glad also that Wesleyan has a strong Indonesian arts program. I really like the liberal arts education system because it is well-rounded, it forces you to think critically, and teaches you to be flexible and multidisciplinary. It really enriches your perspectives and prepares you well for a lifelong journey of learning. I have always been interested in environmental issues, both from the scientific and policy aspects. So at Wesleyan, I double majored in geology and environmental studies, and also did a certificate program in international relations. After spending 4 years at Wesleyan, I spent 5 years at Brown doing my PhD. So I hope this little story of mine inspire you to study in the States. So keep in mind that many top US colleges now offer financial aid to international students. So I would say that if you want to explore many different things and broaden your thinking, instead of pursuing just one discipline after high school, then you should at least consider and then try applying to colleges in the States. Good luck.
Thank you, Satrio. We are now having Dean Joel Hellman with us. Our next, welcome to the webinar, Dean Hellman. Our next speaker is Joel Hellman, the Dean and Distinguished Professor at the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University. He previously taught as a faculty member at Columbia and Harvard Universities. Dean Hellman used to live in Jakarta and knows Indonesia well. Suka masakan Indonesia juga, betul? And Dean Hellman often hosts open house for his students to discuss about foreign policy, foreign service, and diplomacy over soto ayam, rendang, and other Indonesian delicacy. Dean Hellman, please.
Thank you very much, Elzsa. And if I do host, when I do host people over, I only use the soto ayam made by Elzsa, because my soto ayam is not worth bringing a lot of people over to the house for. First of all, selamat malam to my friends in Indonesia. I must admit that as Dean of the School of Foreign Service here at Georgetown, where we get literally tens of thousands of applications from around the world, I don't usually do a lot of direct engagement with students interested. But when Elzsa told me about what she was doing with students from Indonesia, I jumped at the chance. And as she mentioned, I had the great privilege of living for 5 years of my life with my family in Jakarta and traveling all over the country. It was one of the most rewarding and exciting periods of my life. And what I took from my experience in Indonesia is, and then coming back to the United States and actually living in many other countries around the world, is a real longing for Indonesia to take its rightful place around the world, given the strength and size of the country, its population, its contributions to our culture, its strength and importance in religions, in politics, that it is really critical for Indonesia to really establish and take the foundation of its place in the world. And one of the ways, if you look around the world, in which countries have advanced, their interests have become part of the global community, is through a robust exchange of students on both sides. Students coming from those countries to the United States, students from the United States coming to those countries. If you look at China, if you look at India, if you look at Brazil, if you look at Turkey, if you look at other countries on the order of magnitude and status, you see a just tremendous flow of students and faculty, ideas, culture, and interests between the countries. And it's in that respect that I always felt that Indonesia was not as represented as it should. Indonesian students, I'm always eager to encourage Indonesian students to come here. Not only because, as I will tell you in a minute, I think it's an incredible transformative experience, but I think it's actually important for Indonesia and Indonesia's place in the world, not because we want to take the best talent of Indonesia and bring it here to the United States. As you all know, almost every Indonesian who spends a lot of time outside the country returns back home. And I understand the pull of Indonesia for, I hope you know that Indonesians around the world have the largest number of students who return back to the country after their international experience. So it's not about pulling talent out of Indonesia, it's actually about integrating the Indonesian experience across the world and getting your voice, getting Indonesia's voice more into the international dialogue. And that's important politically, culturally, economically, and everything that we do. So I'm excited to welcome Indonesian students. I'm excited to give Indonesian students the support and information they need to think seriously about the United States. So we gain a lot if you seriously consider an experience here in the United States. But of course, I think you would gain a lot by coming here to the United States. And why? You have a lot of options now. You could go to Australia, you could go to Singapore, you can go to the UK, you can go to China. There are lots of opportunities for students around the world, as Sofia, I think, very much pointed out, and they're fabulous opportunities. But what's unique about the United States? In fact, I would sort of say that the American undergraduate experience is probably the strongest and most unique aspect of the American, broader educational and professional experience. There's nothing like the American undergraduate experience in any part of the world. And I've taught and studied in many countries around the world. And why is it so unique? Every country in the world, of course, has great places for research and training and skills building, technical knowledge sharing. But the American undergraduate experience is really about transforming the whole person. It's not only about training you to do something, physics, biology, business, politics, but it's about an extraordinary 360-degree experience of 4 years of intensive engagement, not only in class, but engagement socially and culturally and politically, relationship building not only among students through the undergraduate residential experience, but with this very, very unique engagement between students and faculty, which I don't think you see in any other country in the world. There's a greater distance between faculty and students in other countries of the world. Here, faculty see themselves and a real important part of their work as helping transform the mindsets, the experience of their undergraduate sort of students. And so as a result, what you get from a 4-year experience is not only the technical skills that you might be looking for to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be a politician, to be an artist, but I think what every single person who comes to the United States gets is they learn to think critically, they learn to express themselves clearly and persuasively, they learn to write clearly and persuasively, and I think they learn to think, I hope they learn to think, in a broad-minded way. That doesn't mean that there's one particular viewpoint or approach, but whatever their approach might be, that they tend to support it and understand it and think about it more critically and indeed more persuasively. And I think that makes the students who come to the United States more successful in whatever career path they choose. And I know from my 5 years in Indonesia, I had the privilege to meet in so many different aspects and areas of life in Indonesia, people from across the country. But I could tell you that in 2 minutes, I could identify an Indonesian that studied in the United States, and not just studied abroad, but studied in the United States, because there's something about the mentality, there's something about the intellectual depth, there's something about the way in which they engage and express themselves that I think comes from being in the United States. So I think this is an extraordinary opportunity for students to study here. There's an enormous, and I think Sofia did a wonderful job explaining, there's just an enormous variety of opportunities for you to study. I would encourage you, and as we heard from the students that I just had the privilege of hearing from, the student who went to Wesleyan, there are these fabulous liberal arts colleges as well as large universities that really do shape this overall person. And I think you should think about coming to the United States not as a kind of transactional approach to get a skill that you need to get a job. I think you should think of coming to the United States as an opportunity to really deepen your understanding, your inquiry, your investigation into whatever field that you're interested in. And I think this is an incredible place to do it, and there's an incredible variety of things that you can do. Now, I don't want to repeat, I think the incredibly good advice you got from Sofia about how to go about doing this. She's absolutely right. Every student that is going to apply to a top tier college like Georgetown University and any of our peers, they're going to have the good grades, they're going to have the good performance, they're going to show that whatever opportunities that were in front of them and available to them, they pushed themselves. They took the most challenging courses. They tried in their extracurricular life to identify themselves and their interests and engage at a high level in those interests. Every one of the students who will apply to us has that baseline. I almost look at it as it's when you apply to an American university, the grades, the scores, the activities, that enables you to buy a lottery ticket. But then the question is, how does your lottery ticket get chosen, right? And I think Sofia's right. It's about explaining through the whole application process who you are, What's motivating you? What identifies you? And in particular, what's drawing you to the United States? And not only what's drawing you to the United States, but if you're applying to a place like Georgetown University or the School of Foreign Service, what's drawing you to apply to that school? What is it that you think you can contribute to that place? And it may be a place like Georgetown. It may be a large state school like the University of Michigan. It may be a tiny liberal arts college like Wesleyan or Williams. You have to identify what it is that you are looking to gain out of the experience of being in the United States. What's driving you to be here, and what's driving you to be at that place? Because I think you should look at the American system as almost like a matchmaking process. We are trying to match students who are going to make great contributions to our community with the type of community that we're trying to create ourselves at a place like Georgetown, at a place like Harvard, at a place like Columbia, at a place like Williams. So it's thinking about what do I have to contribute to that community, and what will I gain from that community, and how is that related to who I am as a person, what my vulnerabilities are, what my strengths are. And I think this is an application process which is very, very different from other parts of the world, very different from going to Australia, very different from the UK, very different from China and other places. But it really is about expressing that whole person. And the reason why that is because of where I started out in my conversation. Because we see the educational experience as transforming the whole person. In the application process, we are really looking to understand who you are and why you want to come and be part of our community, and what you will contribute and what we can contribute to you. So I think it's an extraordinary opportunity. I think that more and more Indonesians, I want to see thousands more Indonesians applying to US universities around the country. You know, and I really want, as especially someone who runs a School of International Affairs, that when I go into a classroom, I'm hearing the voice of Indonesians. I'm hearing representation from Southeast Asia, because I can tell you, I'm hearing the voice of China, I'm hearing the voice of Brazil, I'm hearing the voice of India. And I want to hear more of the voice of Indonesia as we think through how to deal with the challenges of the world, is what we do every day at the School of Foreign Service. Now, lastly, let me just say a couple of words about this extraordinary year. I know that this has been one of the most difficult years, and I know it's been for you. I still have many friends in Indonesia. I know how difficult COVID has been for Indonesia, as well as it has been for the United States. I am very, very confident now that with the vaccine being approved in the UK and soon to be approved in the United States, that we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and that we will return back to a normal operations in the fall. And what I want to say is this is a great opportunity for you in Indonesia, because of the disruption that's occurred in the American educational system because of COVID, because of the disruption that's occurred because of the last 4 years of the Trump administration, which was not a friendly administration to international students. I think we have to be frank and clear about that. But the next administration is deeply committed and has already taken a series of steps that they said they'll announce on day one of the administration to reopen the country for our most important asset, which is the students who come from around the world. I think that we will very, very quickly get back to where we once were as I think the dominant location for international students around the world. But there's an opportunity in there, because for the next few years, it's going to be a little slow to return. So there's going to be an opportunity. I think there's going to be more slots open for international students, perhaps more openings for international students to think about, maybe in a little less competition. So a little bit more opportunity to look at their various different places. With the lack of standardized test scores that has now been made optional, standardized test scores, which I personally am not in favor of as admissions, because I don't think it provides as much information as we pretend it does. And I think it leads some people not to apply to us who should. I think you should take the opportunity to apply aggressively across the United States to schools that interest you. because I think it's going to be a golden era for international students, and I hope it's a golden era for Indonesian students. So with that, I just want to welcome applications from all of you. I think take the advice of Sophia about how to craft those applications, because we take very, very seriously those applications. It's not just about your numbers, it's about who you are. And I really do hope to see your applications at Georgetown University, but at any university around the United States, because I think it's so important for the world. So let me stop there. I'm happy, Elzsa. I don't know what the procedure is. If you want to have any questions or something like that, I've got a few more minutes to stay. So you let me know what would be best.
Will do. Thank you, Dean Hellman. Very, very impressive and inspiring remarks. Thank you so much. I hope our viewers in Indonesia get really inspired by what Sophia and Dean Hellman talk about. Now we will open the floor to Q&A, and I'm going to read one of the questions that comes from my eyes. Rian Bara. I have to change my glasses, sorry. See, for your opinion, how can education in Indonesia have same standard with US education? What's wrong with Indonesian educational system? Oops. Who would answer this?
Well, I don't want to make, I can't make broad generalizations. I'm very lucky because when I was in Indonesia, I actually spent a lot of time at UI. I went to Jogja and did some lecturing and tried as best I could to engage with Indonesian universities. And my daughter also spent a semester studying at an Indonesian university. So I did get a bit of an opportunity to look inside. I don't think that, I wouldn't say that there's a problem with Indonesian universities. I just think that the American educational system, which has been developed now over 250 years, it's just very, very different. It's very, very unique. We invest an enormous amount of it. It's expensive, as many of you know, although financial aid is available to students. And we have a model of philanthropy that has enabled us to diversify our student, the students coming into our schools. So, you know, we invest an enormous amount in this educational experience. And I think we place an enormous amount of public and private emphasis on the quality of our education system. Very few countries in the world, both developed and industrial and developing countries, have been able to make the kind of investments that we've made. There are others. I don't want to suggest there aren't, but we've just invested for over 200 years in this educational system, and as a result, we've created a world-class system. I believe that Indonesia is investing and improving and engaging in its own educational system, and I suspect, like many other countries, it will continue to develop and improve over the course of generations, which is what it took us to create the system that you see now.
Thank you, Dean Hellman. Next question from Naila Aisha. Tris, can you please read it?
Okay. From Naila Aisha. Many universities have made testing optional this year, but how about next year? As an 11th grader, should I still take the SAT?
Sophia, do you want to respond? That I can tell you from the Georgetown perspective.
Please.
Well, look, I do think that as a result of the COVID, many schools have taken a decision about testing that they were thinking about for many years. So the notion of whether or not standardized testing should be a core part of an application has been one which has been debated for many years. The view of many is that these tests, although they provide some certain amount of information about the quality of students, they also are deeply discriminatory on economic as well as background, foreign and international background, so that there are many who've been advocating for these tests to be made optional for many years. Now, as a result of COVID, I think that many of the schools that have decided to go test optional may extend that for a longer period of time. And then try to understand what that means for their application pool, what it means for the quality of their students. They may make it a provisional and keep going a few more years and understand what that means. So I do think that more schools will be test optional. Having said that, look, if you have the opportunity and the means to take the test, if you can do it, I suggest you do it. If you can prepare for the test, it is one piece of information. It's not the only piece, but it's useful piece of information to have. And if you can do it and take it, I suggest you do. Some schools will say, even if you've taken it, if you don't want to reveal that score to us, that's fine. And if the school allows you to do that, don't think there's a hidden message there. If the school says you don't need to give your test exam in, don't do it. If you don't think it's going to be helpful to your application. But I do think it's a piece of the puzzle and it's worth putting your effort into if you can.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dean Joe. Next question. So somebody asked, is it possible for her when her English is not fluent enough and she wants to study abroad? What if somebody's English is not good and they want to study abroad?
Well, I mean, look, certainly there is a there is a TOEFL requirement, and you have to have a level of English that we think will make you successful, right? So the important point is it's as wonderful an experience as this is, as you heard from the students in the videos, it's also tough. It's not easy. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of reading. It's a lot of discussion and debate. I suspect many of you already, even in this video, I talk fast and may even have trouble keeping up, but it's a fast-paced environment where if you don't have sufficient knowledge of English, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to quickly catch up and make up for the lost ground. So I think there is a base standard of English that you need to be competitive coming in to American universities at every level, not just at the elite level, but at any level. And I really urge you to do that. So you've got to, if you really want to come to the United States, you've got to invest now in getting that level of English up to the standard that's going to enable you to succeed here. But if you don't have that English, you're not gonna be able to succeed here well. And I wouldn't want you to come and undertake a 4-year investment where you're already so far down in your ability to catch up, given your language skills. So invest in that English. It's well worth it.
Okay, and there also a resource in the university, right? There'll be English for second language, and you can have your counselor to help you with some English after when you already in school.
Can I just say one thing, Tricia, because it's an important point, and I think one of the students mentioned it in the video. The style, it's not only English language, but the style of education in an American undergraduate institution is very, very different than the style of in most Indonesian schools, right? It's much more interactive, it's more intense. The faculty member is not just lecturing and you're taking notes. They're expecting you to engage. It's a back and forth, it's a dialogue. And therefore, language ability, writing ability becomes extremely important. Now, having said that, despite, and not only on the English issues, I also want to let you know that every single American university has extremely good resources to help you make that transition in terms of how you do the work, how you improve your writing, how you even think and work creatively and analytically and critically, helping you kind of manage the workload. So if you do come to an American university, and this is also quite different, I think, than many of our peer institutions in other countries, you'll find a pretty strong support network, not only of other students to help you, but professional network to help you make that transition from the style of education, which may be very, very different in the schools that you came from, to what you have here. So you won't be thrown here without a net. There is a lot of support there. The language is critical, but beyond the language, there's still a lot of support issues that are available to you.
Great.
Thank you, Dean Hellman. As Dean Hellman said, you have to brushing up your English and sharpen your English before coming to the United States. As please remember, studying undergraduate doesn't mean you have to finish high school and apply for undergraduate study. You can be 50 years old and then study undergraduate. So you have time to learn their English and come study undergraduate. I am going to read one last question because it's 9 o'clock now. I'm currently a 10th grader in a school using the Cambridge curriculum. Is there any specific things I have to do? Or does the tips and points you mentioned apply to American universities to the point that I don't need to do anything specific?
Well, I think what you should be thinking about is in whatever the curriculum is in your school, if you want to apply to American universities, especially if you want to apply to elite American universities, the best universities in the country, what our admissions officers will be looking at is whatever the context that you were in, did you take the most challenging courses that were available to you in your school, and did you succeed in them? So there's no magic formula to say every student should take this, that, or the other. I think they do want to see a well-rounded education. So they would like to see you engage in science, and they'd like to see you engage in areas of culture and the arts, and they'd like to see a broad range education. But most importantly, I think they're looking to see, are you someone who's constantly challenging yourself to take the toughest courses, to perform the best that you can? And then the last thing I would say is, and I think this goes to something that Sophia mentioned in the application. This is all about pursuing your passions and explaining why those passions are motivating you, and demonstrating to us that you are trying to achieve the most you can in those areas that you're passionate about. So if you're passionate about poetry, and that's what makes you excited, that's what you want to do in your life, that's what you love spending your time doing, then showing in your application that you've really taken every opportunity you can to take the classes that are going to make you a better poet, that's going to engage with poetry and literature, that's available, all the opportunities that are available to you. That's what we're looking for. If you are interested in physics, if you're interested in astronomy, if you're interested in politics, take what you're passionate about. And if you take what you're passionate about, I can guarantee you that's where you will be most successful. That's where you will get the best grades. That's where you will create the most convincing application. So there's no magic formula to say, take this course, take that course, don't forget that. It's pursue your passion to the highest form of excellence that's available to you. Innovate there, be creative, and then demonstrate to us that this is what motivates me. This is why I want to be a poet. This is why I want to be an astronomer. And this is how I want to use American education to help me foster those goals, because that's what we're looking for. And I think that's what will make you a successful student.
Thank you, Dean.
Well, thank you very much. Terima kasih, everyone. As I said, I really do hope to see more applications from Indonesians. Tell your friends, get others to apply, because I really do think not only that it's wonderful for you, but it's great for us. And especially as America, we really do need to hear your voice. So I really look forward to seeing your applications at Georgetown in particular. And if you look first at Georgetown, because I think in Washington, D.C., you're going to find no more exciting university on the face of the United States. So I hope to see you soon. All the best.
Thank you, Dean Hellman. Ibu Sofia, you have anything to add?
No, except to second everything that Dean Hellman said. Absolutely. We need to see more Indonesian students, more Indonesian youth coming, and with just more of these exchanges on all levels for the years ahead. And no better place to start than studying in the States.
Thank you. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending this event. And thank you, Dean Hellman. Thank you, Ibu Sofia, for making RUMAH Indonesia looks really good.
Always, always.
I think. And we hope you learned something new tonight, get inspired by our panelists, our student speakers, and start working towards your goal. Terima kasih, Ibu Sofia. Terima kasih, Dean Hellman. And Tricia, you have anything?
Yeah, don't forget to like our Facebook page and Instagram. You can also access this video on our Facebook page because it's recorded live. And this is additional resources. If you want to take a screenshot, I think this will be very useful. Okay, sekali lagi terima kasih Dean Hellman, Ibu Sofia, everybody.
Selamat malam semuanya.
Selamat malam.
malam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Selamat malam dan selamat pagi.
Selamat tidur.